This is Mac OS Ken.
More talk of an iPhone ban in China. Lawmakers want to know what the bleep is up with Beeper. And Apple erases video wish lists. It is Monday, the 18th of December, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. Go to greenchef.com/60MOK and use code 60MOK to get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSCan. Hey, remember that iPhone ban in China that may or may not have happened? A report from Bloomberg is going with the totally happened side and arguing that it is, in fact, accelerating. 9to5Mac highlights the Bloomberg piece. On one hand, it says China started banning officials from using iPhones and other foreign technology within government agencies back in September. On the other, it says China officials denied reports that it had banned iPhones from being inside any government agency back in September. Now 9to5Mac quotes Bloomberg saying multiple state firms and government departments across at least 8 provinces, including the prosperous coast, instructed employees in the past month or two to start carrying local brands, according to people familiar with the matter. That's a major step up from around September, the piece continues, when a small number of agencies in Beijing and Tianjin began telling staff to leave foreign devices at home, said the people, who asked not to be identified, discussing confidential orders. 9to5Mac has Bloomberg pointing out that there's plenty we don't know about this story, like how big the bans are and how strictly they'll be enforced. I would add whether the bans are real, but that's just me. Still, says 9to5Mac, the ban presents a major challenge for Apple and other foreign technology companies like Samsung. You know, unless it's tiny, not being enforced, or doesn't even exist. Still. A group of Democratic and Republican senators and congressmen are getting into the whole Beeper Mini thing. Surprisingly, Elizabeth Warren is not among them. You know the Beeper Mini story, right? Beeper Mini reverse-engineered iMessage, connecting an Android phone to Apple servers like an iPhone would. The most obvious result of the app's application, chats between Android and iPhone users in iMessage, would have none of those apparently unsightly green bubbles. Under the hood, such conversations would be end-to-end encrypted, at least in theory. Citing privacy and security concerns, Apple found the feature/flaw Beeper used and shut it down. That's led to a bit of cat and mouse between the two companies, with Apple pretty much prevailing. It also led Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, to post on Twitter, saying green bubble texts are less secure, so why would Apple block a new app allowing Android users to chat with iPhone users in iMessage? Big tech executives are protecting profits by squashing competitors. Chatting between different platforms should be easy and secure. I'm going to say one word, Signal. I'm going to say one more word, which may actually be 2 words, I'm not sure. WhatsApp. Now I'm going to tell you about the letter Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat of Minnesota, Representative Jerry Nadler, Democrat of New York, Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, and Representative Ken Buck, Republican of Colorado, sent to Assistant Attorney General Jonathan Cantor. They're worried that Apple is being anti-competitive, saying that Beeper introduced Beeper Mini without saying that they had reverse-engineered iMessage, and saying Android users were unable to securely communicate with iMessage users and were relegated to using decades-old unencrypted SMS technology, without saying things like Signal and WhatsApp. The group of lawmakers expressed concern that Apple's recent actions to disable Beeper Mini harm competition, eliminate choices for consumers, and will discourage future innovation and investment in interoperable messaging services. And so they say they refer the matter to the Antitrust Division to investigate whether this potentially anti-competitive conduct by Apple violated antitrust laws. Thanks to friend of the show Ben, by the way, for pointing me toward that letter. It was posted by Joe Ling Kent, senior business and tech correspondent at CBS News on Twitter. Apple's agreed to settle a class action lawsuit over App Store subscriptions and family sharing. Family sharing is the feature that lets members of a group or family share a subscription to an application. Thing is, it doesn't work automatically. It's actually up to the developer to decide whether a subscription can be shared. Back in 2019, a piece from Mac Rumors says plaintiffs accused Apple of misrepresenting the way that subscriptions to third-party apps worked with the family sharing feature. While admitting no wrongdoing, Apple has agreed to pay $25 million to make the suit go away. Affected consumers are expected to get somewhere between $30 and $50, with as much as $10 million going to plaintiffs' attorneys. Along a similar line as the family sharing option, Apple Insider has word of a new offering for developers: contingent pricing for subscriptions. Basically, if you're subscribed to one service, developers can offer you a subscription to another service at a lower price, contingent on the first subscription. Possible examples listed by Apple Insider include offering a discounted subscription to a second set of features if the user already subscribes to a core version, or simply offering a discounted subscription to an unrelated app from the same developer. Contingent pricing for subscriptions is currently being piloted by the Cupertino company. The piece says Apple plans to expand the program to more developers in the coming months. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. How's that going for you? I know the holidays can be tough. So many rich and sweet treats. You can counter those with flavorful meals made with clean ingredients for the rest of the holiday season and into the new year. May sound like a tough change, but it is really not for a couple of reasons. First, every Green Chef customer gets a free session with their registered dietitians, folks who can walk you through how to make clean eating work for you. And the second reason it's not tough? You're just cooking great food. This month they're featuring flavor-packed recipes like buttery lemon garlic shrimp, maple butternut squash risotto, and sriracha tamari beef bowls. For the Green Chef meals I've had, the ingredients have been fresh, the recipes have been easy to follow, and the meals have been some of the best I've had in a long time. I don't mean good for clean eating, I mean simply delicious. Green Chef is now owned by HelloFresh, so you know they know quality and convenience. So get to know Green Chef. Go to greenchef.com/60MOK and use code 60MOK to get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. That's greenchef.com/60MOK and use code 60MOK to get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. Feel your best this season with Green Chef. Get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months with code 60MOK at greenchef.com/60MOK. There's neat Apple-adjacent news for a subset of a subset of a subset of air travelers in the U.S., which I guess means a fourth subset. According to a piece from Apple Insider, people flying Delta Airlines first class on one of the carrier's newest planes can connect their AirPods or any Bluetooth headphones straight into the plane's in-flight entertainment system. That is potentially a lot of watching and or listening. The piece says the in-flight infotainment features over 500 movies and 100 TV series for travelers to watch. Right now, though, not a lot of planes on which to watch. In addition to being limited to first class, the offering is only available on Delta's new A321neo. The airline has 35 of those in the air currently. They'll add another 155 to the fleet over the next 3 years. It wasn't just buying video in the iTunes store that got nixed last week. It seems wishing for it did as well. I told you last week that Apple stopped the sale of movies and TV shows in the iTunes Store apps in lockstep with last week's round of OS updates. Folks looking to buy such content are now being steered to the Apple TV app, available on almost any electronic device. Now the drag, or the other drag, depending on how into the iTunes Store you were. According to a piece from Mac Rumors, Apple's move to consolidate purchasing and viewing in the Apple TV app has done away with Wishlists, and customers who use the feature got no warning about their elimination. Before the change, the report says, there were options to add TV shows and movies to a dedicated wish list when browsing, which consumers used to save the content for later and watch for sales. The biggest complaint seems to be that it happened without warning. While people keeping tabs on all things Apple had all kinds of hints that the video sales change was coming, most people don't keep tabs on all things Apple, and besides, a change in the way things are sold didn't have to mean the wish lists would go away. Given the level of consumer complaint, MacRumor says it's possible that Apple will resurrect the list. Site doesn't expect that to happen, but it's possible. And finally today, more Hamm on the way. Apple TV Plus issued a press release late last week announcing a new drama to be led by the morning show Mad Men and Confess Fletch star Jon Hamm. In the show, called Your Friends and Neighbors, Hamm plays Coop, a recently divorced hedge fund manager who, after being fired, resorts to stealing from the wealthy residents in his tiny upstate New York suburb in order to keep his family's lifestyle afloat. These petty crimes begin to reinvigorate him until he breaks into the wrong house at the wrong time. The show boasts Jonathan Tropper as creator, executive producer, and showrunner. Tropper has written such films as The Atom Project, This Is Where I Leave You, and Kodachrome. He also served as showrunner and executive producer on the flagship Apple original series, C. No word on when the new series is expected to debut. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Green Chef. Go to greenchef.com/60MOK and use code 60MOK to get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.